What's up, everyone? Welcome to Creator Support, the show where we answer your questions about the business of being a creator.
Today on the show, we're talking about hiring, how to hire and how to get hired. We also respond to some criticism that we got about this show. And lastly, we talk about the average lifespan of a creator career.
All right, our first question comes from Cleo Abram.
So I went independent earlier this year. It's been amazing. But one of the things that I really miss about working at a media company is that when I was working at Vox, there was this incredible team already built in. And the biggest struggle that I'm having right now is building that as an independent. So here's my question for you. Show us your org chart. Who works for you? What do they do? And what's the biggest mistake that you made when you were hiring people? Thanks.
That's a great question. And hiring is not something that, at least for me personally, that's not a strong suit for me.
You've been pretty resistant to it.
I've always been resistant to it. I'm like, why would we bring somebody else in? Let me just lock myself in my room and figure this out.
Yeah, so there's a few parts to Cleo's question and her video. First of all, thank you, Cleo. If you guys don't watch Cleo, you should definitely go check her out. She's got great content on her channel. If we back up, she first said the concept of going from a company to going independent. And I want to talk about that quickly because we did that. Mm-hmm. So if you guys don't know, Colin and I first started out as, starting a company called the Lacrosse Network, got acquired, went into a company structure that grew to 120 employees. We had our own office here in LA that grew up to about 15 people. And then we left. And when we left, that was the most surprising thing that I didn't think about that was probably obvious was how lonely it was going to be. Mm-hmm. Like when we left, all of a sudden, it was you and I. And there wasn't like a group of people to go have lunch with or even like a bunch of people working on the same problems as us.
Yeah, the experience of having a win with 7 to 10 people that you spend your time with as opposed to just you and I was drastically different. And we didn't realize that.
And being a part of something bigger. Like that was a really interesting experience, even to like show up to a place every day and have inside jokes with someone or like just general team culture.
I mean, we worked in a WeWork and they had fruit water for free.
Right.
Not for free, but it felt like it was for free.
It was a co-working space.
And they changed the fruit from day to day.
And there was other companies in there, which was really cool.
It was a dream.
So we went from that to like meeting up at coffee shops and being like, okay, so what do we do now?
Yeah, like, what do you got for me today?
Yeah, like, what do we do? And that was a culture shock and not one that I anticipated at all. So that's number one. Like, I empathize with the concept that it is isolating to work. I don't know if that is a super compelling reason to hire, but I do think it's a compelling reason to find community. Back to, like when we interviewed the group at Your Mom's House, when they were Your Mom's House, the New York City Content House. The one thing they said that I thought was really interesting was like, they were like, at a minimum, we have people to edit next to. And I thought that was a really important thing, actually. It's just like someone next to you who's going through the same thing as you. Mm-hmm. But now to turn to hiring, she asked 2 questions, which was show us the Colin and Samir org chart, and then also talk about the mistakes that we've made when hiring. So why don't we go back to, it was you and I for a very long time.
Yeah.
We had collaborators, but it was you and I for a very long time.
Well, we'll get to the mistakes. I want to say that one thing I think we've done well in terms of hiring over the years is never just hiring someone full-time immediately. It's always been on a project basis, experimenting with a small video here or even just a portion of a video we were working on, then maybe an entire video, then maybe 4 videos until it felt like we actually were working full-time with this person anyway.
Yeah. So when we got to the point of hiring, it was always like pegged against like we had enough revenue to do it, first of all, because it took us a long time, you and I, to just make enough money to exist.
Yeah.
But once we got to the point where there was like dollars in and we could actually use those to invest back into the company, our first real like hire came down to like post-production. And I think it's because post-production is really, really challenging and time consuming. And I was stepping back from post-production and you were taking it all on your shoulders. And our first hire was Jesse. And Jesse's working the switcher right now. Yep. So Jesse's working the switcher. He's been with us since 2019. We've been working together since 2019 in different capacities, but came full time in 2020. But that was something that I think most creators probably look at hiring from a post-production standpoint. Post-production or production. It's like, help me make my videos, right? That's number one. And I think that makes sense. But I think the thing as you're hiring someone in the creative field, when it's just typically like, you and I, one of the challenges that I think you expressed quite a bit was not knowing what to tell this person to do, right?
Yeah,
like not knowing what to tell Jesse to do.
Candidly, I still have anxiety sometimes when I come in the morning.
Right.
And I feel unprepared for what everyone needs to do. And even when I spend the time to try and make a list, I sometimes can't make a list. Like I just don't know until I sit down and I open a project and I'm like, oh, here's what needs to happen. I'll just do it. But I find that to be a strength of yours that I feel like I could throw cold water on you in the morning. And I'd be like, what does Jesse need to do today?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, this, that. We've got this and this thing's going over there and he's already working on this. So that's fine.
Right.
You just have like a mind for that. Whereas it still to this day stresses me out. Jesse doesn't stress me out. I love Jesse. He's a delight.
Yeah.
But the idea of what people need to do stresses me out.
Right. So we'll get to that. Let's get deeper into our org chart now. So it's you and I. We have Jesse, who we talked about, who like heads up kind of production. Like with this whole set we have, he was in charge of helping put this together and making sure that these cameras work in the right way. Also, when we go on the road, like when we went to Mark Rober's studio, what do we need to bring? That's Jesse's packing the bag, he's bringing it up. We're bringing an intensive production setup. You and I trying to set up cameras ourselves, disaster. So having someone to do that and support us with that, and then up level the quality, bring in the footage, help us with post-production. That was the first thing we needed. We then hired again in the post-production place, which is Tyga, supports us with our short form content, but also across like, all content. It's kind of like when you're first starting out as a creator, it's like all hands creatives you need. It's kind of like, I need you to like edit. I need you to hold cameras. I might need you to do graphic design. You just kind of need general creative support. And as we started going down that path and the business started picking up, we hired Marilyn. Marilyn's also sitting in the room right now. Marilyn operates as, kind of like a producer across almost everything, whether it's this channel, our main channel, our brand partnerships, just knowing what's going on in the company, knowing what you and I need to do, having a very macro view, but able to go into like actually tangibly how does stuff work. I think a producer is very required for YouTube creators as you start to pick up and get more and more stuff on your plate. Because being Colin and Samir now is not just what's our next YouTube video. And that's, like as your company scales, you have where are we going? What are our calls today? What do we need to do to actually get our videos out on time, given the context of how much else we have going on?
Yeah, I'll add as a specific example, this morning, Marilyn provided us with a deck of all of the possible questions that we could react to and respond to on this episode.
Right.
And we sat in a meeting and went over them.
Right. Next on our creative team, we have Mia, who helps us with research. I think research, especially in what we do, is really, really important when we're going to interview a guest. We need really dialed in research documents. We need to know like everything, all the corners of the internet they've existed on, like that's something that's really important to us. And then more recently right now in office, we also have Bryce, who's working on our online course and course development. Outside, we work with Jay Alto, who helps us with our thumbnails. He's kind of like a thumbnail consultant. Then we also have Julian, who supports us with data and insights. And that is kind of the current suite of the Colin and Samir side of the business. And I say that because we have another side, which is the Publish Company. Publish Company, is primarily our newsletter, the Publish Press. In that company, we have Nate and Hannah, who are both writers, Josh and Jenny, who are our partners in the company and operate as like, kind of management and executives there. 2 writers. We have an ad ops person, Allie, who kind of does like general, operations, and also with our advertising. We have a graphics person, Benji, and then we have an editor-in-chief, Kinsey. So that's a whole nother company that has a whole nother suite of people. I think I got everyone in our org chart.
I hope you did.
Yeah.
And we've grown actually quickly. I was going to say slowly, but
quickly.
But in a way, a lot of the roles have been gradual. Even just thinking about the fact that Marilyn actually would write research docs for interviews and then worked with Mia, and now Mia helps us with that.
Right.
So like one role where someone did a bunch of things sort of sometimes split off into 2.
Yeah, I think when you're first starting out as a creator, you need generalists, like a lot of creative generalists. I think even to last year as, when we hired Chris, who is a creative on our team, editor, edited the Mr. Beast doc with us, was also on the editing podcast with us that came out this week. Very much came in as a generalist, right? Like he could do graphic design, he could do music, he could hold cameras. Like you're looking for generalists when you're hiring first as a YouTube creator. And I think a lot of that is because being a creator has so many different components to it. You need to write, you need to film, you need to edit, you need to design, do graphic design, you have to talk to a brand sponsor, you have to do distribution. There's so many different elements to it that you kind of just want creative generalists.
Especially if you're in the position that most likely Cleo is in right now, having just left Vox, and is building her career as an independent creator. The position that we've been in, where you're still trying to figure out what works. Yeah. And when you're still trying to figure out what works, you may have to change things from a content perspective really quickly. You may see what's happening with 2 or 3 uploads and go, okay, we actually need to do more graphics, less graphics, longer episodes. So you do need those generalists who can move really quickly with you.
You also need feedback. I think what Cleo's talking about when it comes to being isolated, like you need both positive, negative. You just need you need feedback. Like even sitting next to someone and being like, what do you think of this? Is so helpful when you're in this career that's so kind of open. Everything is up for interpretation. Everything is pioneering something. A lot of things have never been done before. And I thought, something that you shared this morning was Mr. Beast tweeted out, his job descriptions. Jimmy's hiring like crazy. Like if you're looking for a job in the creator economy, go to MrBeastJobs.com because he's always has something open. But the job description he posted today was one of the most interesting job descriptions I've seen in our field, which is creative. Like just to be a creative. And I'm going to read some of what he wrote. Creatives single-handedly have one of the hardest jobs at the company because they're responsible for developing ideas that have never been done before. I think that is actually representative of a lot of what we're doing and why maybe you struggle at times to answer questions of what does someone need to do. Because as a creative company, your job is to try and make stuff that's never been done before or an idea that's coming to life on the keyboard.
I find that extremely difficult, especially whenever I'm asked about timelines of like, when do you think this will be ready? I'm like, well, I don't know necessarily where we're supposed to land. Like I have a feeling of where this video should land.
Yeah.
But I don't know how long it's going to take to get there. How many versions we're going to have to watch to know whether it's right or wrong. The benefit of this show is that we can actually control, for the most part, what this is supposed to be, what this show is.
Yeah, I think that's where you actually need, as a creative, you need deadlines because of that open-endedness.
Like and some constraints.
Yeah, to create a constraint and be like, and what I find interesting is actually, if you are someone who's looking to hire a team, I think teams can create pressure that either you can react positively or negatively to. Because once you start hiring a team, all of a sudden you're paying, monthly amounts, right? And all of a sudden your overhead has increased. So now you kind of have to look at everything in the concept of like, is my business functioning in a way that I can support these people? And that might mean putting out a certain amount of content. That might mean supporting the content in a certain way. So I think that as a creator, you should really think about if you would like that pressure on your creative output. Because if you don't want that pressure on your creative output, I would be really hesitant on hiring, and especially hiring multiple people and taking on a ton of overhead because you can't really be as nimble anymore.
Yeah, it's easier to hire and know what a job description should even look like if you have a format that's consistent, that's dialed, that you're confident in, and that you're pretty sure isn't going to have to change that much.
If you're exploratory every video, it's pretty hard to build out a company with multiple roles. It's hard. And this goes back to something we've talked about before, which is like this spectrum of maker to managers. In a creative field, we talk about how like there's makers. Makers are people who want to focus on making. They just want to, work on a video and explore it and make it when it's ready. Like when it's good, when inspiration hits, they'll make. If inspiration doesn't hit, they won't make. You go to the maker managers, which is, I think, like a lot of creators straddle the line between being a true creative and managing a team. That's one of the most challenging roles because you're balancing between team management, and like leadership, working on actually growing someone's career and spending time being a creative, like trying to be inspired, trying to say something. And then a manager is all the way on the other end, probably pretty distant from the creative, but, can look at everything from a 30,000 foot view from the macro perspective and run a media company. And I think we as a community right now are valuing the like building of the media empire really high, where I think there's a lot of people who just actually want to make, and that's completely fine. You can be just like a solo creator, maker who brings on team for specific projects. And it's a finite amount of time. You have collaborators and you take a step back, Like I think that is a completely valid path for a lot of people.
So when it comes to the second part of Cleo's question, which was about the biggest hiring mistakes we've made, does one come to mind for you?
I would say just generally expecting a new hire to immediately offload workload for you. I think it's not smart for you when you're hiring to suggest that you can get someone up and running within weeks. And I think in a YouTube company, everything is moving so fast. Someone's probably coming in as the train is moving, right? And the train's moving really fast. We're on a cycle, upload to upload to upload. So if you hire and you're like, I just brought on this editor, and 2 weeks later you're like, they're not working out. I think that is where people make mistakes. They don't plan ahead and say, I need to give this 3 months. And what does the onboarding process look like? Like, what does week 1 look like? What does week 2 look like? What does week 3 look like? How do I actually get them into a position where they're ready to be on the team? And that might be 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Like my experience has been in our company, for someone to actually be a part of the team, it takes 3 to 6 months. And that's hard to commit to because you're not only committing to continuing to create, but you're also training someone. Jimmy said when I was talking to him about hiring, I was like, how is someone like the right fit for you? And he was like, they have to follow me around for a couple weeks.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, I think that's a mistake we've made is bringing people in and having them go straight into a project.
Right.
There are some benefits to that. You just get thrown right into it. You kind of have to figure some things out. But I do think if we gave ourselves time and just said, okay, your role is this, and to be better at that role in a month, you're just going to shadow either Colin or Samir or whatever it is. Like you're just going to be at their hip to see what they do.
When I worked as an editor in Hollywood, my first job, my first 3 weeks were just sitting in the editor's room every day, not talking, just watching him edit. It was so boring.
I was gonna say, that sounds like the worst.
Dude, it was so boring. But I still remember extremely specific things he was doing. And I think that observation is undervalued in the hiring process, where it's just like, I need you to just be here and observe how we operate and soak it in. So last thing on this hiring piece, I think this is an important one because I think it applies to both like getting a job as well as hiring. When I think about us hiring and like growing our team beyond what it currently is, what matters to me first, number one, is not skill set or competency. It's actually culture. Like, what type of person are you? I find that, when we're hiring, if I give you a task and you come back in like the pursuit of excellence with that task, no matter what it is, you're probably going to be a good fit for us. Because, even when I think back to when we brought on Chris, I think is a great example. We started working with him, freelance, but the way we got to working with him, he emailed and said, I'm interested in working for you guys. I'll do anything. I said, great. I need to fill out this Excel sheet. And he responded back and filled it out within 2 hours. And I was like, cool. He did that task really well.
Yeah.
And then we said, we need you to, he emailed and was like, I can do creative things too. And we're like, cool. Can you make motion graphics? And he just said, yes. And then he made motion graphics with you for a project we were working on. We found out he had no idea how to make motion graphics.
Yeah. On that point, there's a great quote. I don't know who said it, but it goes, the way you do anything is the way you do everything.
Exactly.
And that struck me really hard.
Yeah.
In my everyday life, thinking about how many things am I giving 60% to? And is that carrying over to other tasks that I should be giving 100% to?
Yeah. So, I think if you are, a young creator and you're maybe independent right now, but also, you're a craving team, of course, one version is to hire. Another version is to go get a job, like to go work. We've talked about it on this show, but like, I can't stress that enough. You look at Johnny Harris, you look at Cleo Abram, like they came from Vox. They were working in a media company and they're making excellent content and they know how to do that. They know what it feels like to be on a team. When they go to hire, they know what it should feel like. They know what it feels like to be a creative employee. I think it's important to know what it's like to be a creative employee if you're going to become a creative employer. So I think like being a part of a team doesn't necessarily mean that you're hiring. You also can go get hired. There's jobs available in our field.
Yeah, I think we would have found success much quicker had we worked at a creative company longer.
Yeah, or a different creative company. Yeah. Okay, well, cool. Hopefully that answered the question, Cleo, and anyone else.
Before we get to the next question.
Yeah.
Is it too early for a gripe?
A little bit, but you've been itching to say this one for a while.
I haven't had a gripe in a while.
Go ahead.
And I have a gripe.
Go ahead.
So this weekend, Friday night, I'm at a restaurant. I get up to go to the bathroom.
Okay.
There's 3 bathrooms in this restaurant. All of them clearly state whether it's vacant or occupied. Vacant, it's green. You can see it. Occupied, it's red. 2 out of the 3 are occupied. I go into the vacant one. Right when I open it up, there's a guy who's like, whoa, 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 which understandably so. That's a startling thing to happen. You're going to the bathroom and someone walks in. I close the door. That's all right. Someone else, another bathroom opens up. I go in, I go to the bathroom. I come out. The guy is waiting for me.
No.
He's waiting for me. And he sees me come out of the bathroom.
Okay.
And he goes, you can use this one now.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
That takes a lot.
That takes a lot of nerve, man.
Guy
didn't lock the door.
Right.
Don't put that on me.
I think that's a classic case of like that guy doesn't have that much excitement in his life. And that confrontation was probably like pretty exciting for him.
And what do I say? I just go, oh no, I'm good. I already went.
You should have been like, oh great, I wanted that one.
That's the one I wanted.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's
nerve.
a gripe. Like lock the door.
Yeah.
And if you forget, don't come after me. It's
no,
not my
you should
fault.
have knocked and then said, may I enter? All right. This question comes from the subreddit. What to call yourself when running a business creating content? I'm a video producer based in Utah. I've created videos online for over a decade and recently jumped away to run my own production company. Most of my client work is content creation. I wondered what title you give yourself when you're in my position. Founder and senior video producer, founder and chief content creator, executive producer. Like what we do is so much more than just video producer. This was a struggle for the majority of my career. I had no idea what to call myself.
Do you have a go-to?
I like executive producer if you're running a production company. If you're running the show, an executive producer is responsible for creating and monetizing the content. Simple, right? It's just like executive producer encompasses the role of being an executive and being a producer. So I would go with that, or chief content officer. It's up to you.
It's tough because those sound really grand. And if it's just you on yourself, like by yourself, like I'm the chief content officer, they're like, of who? You're like, my own channel. It is difficult. I like what Marquez Brownlee says. He says, I'm a video producer.
Right. Yeah.
And then you could just go on to say, oh, I do it independently on my own YouTube channel.
I think I was really caught up in the concept of titles when I felt like we weren't making it. You know, like when you're insecure about where you are in your career, I think that's when, as an independent, that's when you get more into how you're externally showing up. But I think as you start to develop security, you start to loosen that up and be like, yeah, I'm a video producer. Like I make videos.
Yeah.
Video creator. But I would say executive producer is a completely reasonable title for running your own production company and being the guy who's responsible for all of it. Totally fine.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. 2-parter right now, Colin.
Okay.
First,
hold on. Let me just cross off gripe.
Yeah, that's good because you got it.
To cross that off. Yeah. Okay. Carry on.
All right. Did you see the Twitter thread about this show? It's from Oliver Gilpin, and he says, "Are Colin and Samir damaging their brand by creating a second channel? Maybe. Period." It goes on, but I'll stop there. Well, okay. I'll continue.
Yeah, continue a little bit.
He says, maybe. The reason? The brand is built on a viewer's impression of value per minute of consumption. And subconsciously, we all use this to evaluate our options while scrolling YouTube home. He goes on to suggest that this channel, Creator Support, has less value per minute than our main channel. And that the existence of this channel that is a more, in his words, like a more diluted version of what we do on our main channel is damaging to the overarching Colin and Samir brand. Your response?
I think it is a valid question to put out there. There's, whenever someone starts a second channel, it's something to think about. Am I diluting my brand? Should I just put should I continue to put my resources towards a single location? I think that's totally valid. Obviously, you and I haven't uploaded a video on our main channel in 2 months, so you could make the argument that this is taking time away from us.
But that's not what he's saying. He's saying that the style of this is less valuable than the main channel. That's what he's saying. He's saying that the value per minute on this channel is less because we have stuff like gripes and that we like go looser and there's not as many graphics. Like he's talking about when you and I cut a video for our main channel, we are insane when it comes to every word that's in it.
Yeah.
Like we're insane. We sit over a timeline, listen to every minute, we'll type it out. We'll take a really long time because we are obsessing over if we are hitting value in that video. This, not as much, right? We're more open to having a loose conversation. That was the concept of starting this channel.
But that's the value of this channel.
Right.
So I think you have to value differently depending on what the goal is of the channel.
Yeah, I think I'm not going to lie and say it wasn't a concern of mine launching this channel.
Yeah, of course. We talked about it for a long time.
At length. That's why we didn't do it for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think how I would respond to this is like at every juncture in our creator journey, I've looked at like what feels right for a long period of time. But I would also say that we've lived in a world of like insecurity as creatives for a really long time because we weren't making it. We spent 6 years with no results, right? And then all of a sudden, the brand hit and our main channel like picked up and it finally found its space. But if you look at our past 6 years, we've been in a constant evolution, searching for what feels right as creatives. And, I think that this, like doing this show and doing it in a more loose fashion feels right now. And it feels good to have a conversation with the audience, to respond to questions, to provide value in a different way, and also to have fun doing, gripes and messing around on the channel a bit. I understand that it's not the same as the main channel. That's why we put it on a different channel.
Yeah, I would hope it's not the same.
It's not supposed to be the same.
Yeah.
And, whether it's damaging to the overarching brand, I don't know if we'll know that for a long time. And I don't know that...
I think if a year from now, our brand has been damaged, it's not because we've put ourselves out more so on the internet.
Right.
Like, we're only as good as the work that we put out week to week, year over year. It's going to be up to us to determine if we've continued to provide value a year from now.
Yeah. I also, I think you and I both, when we talked about this channel, value connection with our audience, like being able to respond directly to you guys and like answer your questions. We both value that a lot. And I think that the people who watch this channel, my hope is that they value that too. So I think it's a different subset of audience with a different set of values. And that's where for me, I look at this and I'm like, I was cautious about this decision, but when we made it, like this has been a very freeing, liberating experience for me to have this channel where we can just chat and respond directly to the audience. Like I feel a lot closer to our audience right now, to everyone who's watching. Like that's a positive thing for me.
But how did you feel right when you read that piece of criticism? Did you think, oh shit, this guy might be right?
No, I thought, oh, interesting. Like I didn't think someone would take the time to write that.
Oh.
Like I was like, that's so interesting. I think I still have a level of insecurity that like our brand is not substantial enough for someone to comment on the fact that we made a second channel. So I was more like, that's so interesting that someone has a take on this. I was almost more like excited to read it.
I don't know. I didn't think that was that novel because like we talk about strategy and people have made videos talking about.
But he took time to write it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. You sent it to me with no copy.
I said interesting take.
An hour later, you just sent it to me.
I had never seen someone quantify and say like the creator support channel is 70% as much value per minute as the main channel. That's like so interesting that someone
subjective.
It's subjective, but isn't that interesting that someone said that?
I don't know. You sent it to me with no comment.
Yeah.
And in my head, I was like, oh gosh, like the house is burning down. Like, let's close up the company. This is terrible. I couldn't respond. I didn't respond to you.
No, you didn't respond.
Because I was just like, I can't go down this route right now of like, is all of this messed up? Which is like, it made me go down that route. And especially without any comment from you. And then an hour later, interesting take. I was like, what does he mean by interesting take? And it was the morning. I just had to like, I couldn't address it. I was like, dude, we got other things to do.
So I think what's really interesting is like everything we do here as creators is a dance between what we're making and how the audience is reacting. That's the whole thing of like a creator business.
Yeah.
Is like whatever we make in here and how they're reacting. Those are the two equations that come together. So whenever there's like a reaction that someone takes time to draft, I find it to be really interesting. It's like reading movie reviews, you know?
Yeah.
And I just want to come to our next question from the subreddit because it has to do with this. This is from JM_something helpful. How do you cheer yourself up when a video you were really excited for doesn't perform well? Published what I thought was one of the best packaged and edited videos earlier today, and it's a 7. I know it's only been a couple of hours, but it still feels bad, man. It never doesn't feel bad. JM, something helpful. It never doesn't feel bad.
The reality is you and I spiral. Like it's a total reality. If we hit a 10 out of 10, maybe we don't spiral as hard as we used to.
Yeah, I don't think as hard as we used to.
But we do, for a period of time, spiral and just start to think, what about this? Maybe we should do that, which I think is fine. Like I think it's good to force yourself to ask questions. Even this criticism of this channel made me think like, okay, like, is there some validity to that? How can we sink into being more comfortable with this channel? What's right? What's wrong? Like, there's a reality that when you get that 10 out of 10 or whatever it is, it sucks.
Yeah, I think there's a level. So number one, to do this career is very interesting because you are publicly succeeding or failing. I thought about that when watching the Jake Paul-Tommy Fury fight. Like, Jake Paul is so loud about what he's doing. Like, honestly, very impressive marketer and promoter. But like, I was sitting there thinking about the fact that like he lost in front of everybody. You know, like when you play an individual sport or do any of that, like it's a public, your performance is so public. You know, if you're running an e-commerce website, like an online website that sells merchandise, no one knows your revenue number that day. No one knows your site traffic that day. Everyone can see when we publish a video how it's doing. Everyone knows how we are performing at our job. That is such an interesting choice to make as like a career.
Yeah.
Like everyone can see the views on this video. Everyone can see how our last video on our main channel did. The brands that work with us, the industry, other creators, audience members, everyone sees how we're doing. There's very few businesses that you're in where everyone knows,
Yeah.
And so I think
what makes it easier for me, or what has made it easier, is to make sure I know, number one, did I enjoy the process of making that video? Number two, do I feel like that video had value for the audience I'm trying to reach and connect with? If I can say yes to both of those things, then it's more so about tweaking potentially. Well, first off, just trying again because you have the opportunity. But then two, like tweaking some of maybe the title thumbnail, the idea, how actually mass was the idea that you chose.
I think that you need to look at everything. So this is directly to you, JM_something helpful. You need to look at everything on a 5-year window rather than a 1 week or 1 month window. And I'm saying this from experience. I feel like last year I looked at everything from a 3-month window. Like our back's against the wall. We have a few months to make this work. So a 10 out of 10 when you're publishing twice a month is really impactful because you have like 6 tries. If you're thinking the finish line is 3 months from now or a month from now, right? Then it's only 2 videos away. When you start thinking like 5 years in the future, then you're like, oh, okay, this video did not perform well. Let me learn but I have years to figure this out. Like I am at this for years. And that's the thing that I've realized coming into 2023 with performance is like, you have to learn from it, but you have to look at it on a very long-term window. Like we're on episode 6 of this show. I've been saying to you, like, I'm so interested to see where we are in episode 52 and then episode 300 and then episode 500. Like, where are we doing this show in 10 years? Maybe we're not doing this show. Maybe we're doing a different iteration. But I think the thing that you have to recognize as a creator, this is hard. The fact that YouTube ranks us is hard. The fact that your viewership is public is hard. Like that is all hard parts of the equation. But the thing that you have to settle into is if you're the type of person who wakes up every day and just can't not make a YouTube video. You're just like, I have to express myself through YouTube videos. I love it so much that I have to do it. That means that you're probably committed to it for a large portion of your life and you will figure it out. And I think that the day you stop caring about performance is probably the day you should think about if it really should be your career. I think you can be an artist and publish YouTube videos and not care about performance. I think that's great. But to do this as a job, I think you have to play into both of those things and start to settle in and be like, that's what it's like. It's like being a tennis player and losing a tennis match or being a boxer and losing a boxing match. It's like, okay, make some adjustments and get back up and try it again. Wait, hold on. But the question was, how do you cheer yourself up? So how do you cheer yourself up when you get a low performing video?
Okay. Honestly, I think I just move on. Like I just get a coffee, I move on to the next challenge, like to the next video.
I have to go through the cycle in my head of anger, sadness, confusion, making my resume and being like, where can I apply to go get a job?
Okay.
What do I do if this all ends? What expenses do we have? We have to file for bankruptcy.
So I
go through all of that.
I have to deal with your cycle.
I go through that and then I spit out being like really energized about what the next video is. So but I have to experience my emotional turmoil.
Yeah. So,
and it's going to happen every time. Like it's going to happen every time.
for anyone listening or watching, whenever we are on a plane and we're in turbulence,
Yeah.
Samir, no one likes turbulence, but Samir really used to not like it.
Yeah, I developed a terrible fear of flying in my 20s.
And so I'll liken extreme turbulence to getting a 10 out of 10 in the YouTube studio.
Okay.
And whenever we're up in the air and there's turbulence, Samir looks at me and I just give him a thumbs up. That's it. I'm just like, hey man, this will pass.
Yeah.
We will land safely on the ground. And that's kind of the experience when you and I get a bad video or a 10 out of 10. Like you spiral a little bit, freak out a little bit, it'll be all right. We move on, we get a good coffee, figure out our next idea.
Yeah, I think writing down all the lessons from it, that really helps. But you might just have to experience the emotion of like, I put a lot of work into this. Sucks it didn't work out. That sucks. You know, you got to experience those emotions. Let yourself experience them fully. Then move on. Try again.
I wish I knew what cheered me up. Like I just had something immediately where it was like, oh, of course, I go get this, cheeseburger and I'm happy.
Well, you did tell me that you order Shake Shack late at night.
And I see no problem with that.
No problem. No problems here.
Okay.
Devin Ricker, any problems?
Okay. Don't out me for my nutrition.
That's our personal trainer who checks in on our nutrition.
I think it's one of my delights in life is to be able to order Shake Shack, chocolate shake, fries, and a burger with bacon. If I want to, at 10:30 at night, if I'm still hungry, I will do it. And no one can stop me.
Are we in the deep end?
I think, I'm pretty sure.
We're in the deep end.
Yep, this is the end. Not the end, the deep end.
Let me go ahead and just quickly say my gripe. My gripe is with free sampling culture. So, when you're at like a grocery store or something and there's someone offering free samples.
Of course.
What I dislike is if the person who's offering free samples gives you the sample, asks you what you think, and then says, would you like to buy right now? That happened to me over the weekend. And I was like, I'm just here for the free sample. You're free sampling. The exchange was not like a commitment to buy or even a potential commitment to buy because they were disappointed when I said like, no, I'm okay. I'm just going to move on now. You're offering free samples.
So you don't think they should ask the question?
They shouldn't even ask like, would you like to buy? Because now I'm fully turned off.
Because it's a free sample.
It's a free sample.
Yeah. It's not a sample with guilt.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hold the guilt.
Yeah, hold the guilt.
It's just free.
Just give me the sample. Interesting.
Okay. This comes from M. Nazar Saeed. He says, how do you maintain consistency in the early dog days of starting out? Feels like normal life keeps getting in the way. So when you're first starting on YouTube, like how do you commit to a schedule when you have life?
Okay, I think it depends on what you want to make.
Right.
Either you're trying to make something that requires a heavier lift and you will not be consistent, but you will be getting experience making something you want to make the way you want to make it. Again, it may not turn into a career, but there are some creators who find a lot of success making a few videos a year, depending on what your videos are. I would say if you want to be consistent, if that's important to you, which it is important to build a career, I would consider lessening your production format, your style, which we did. We shifted heavily towards podcasts, or think about short form content. Think about lower barrier to entry content.
When we were first starting out, think back to like when we were in the warehouse, when we were first starting out, we were struggling to maintain consistency. We committed to saying like every Thursday we're uploading on the Colin and Samir channel. And then after a while, we were struggling to hit Thursday. We even pulled some all-nighters for this deadline that we set for ourselves, which was every Thursday. And then what we did was when we had this space in my family's warehouse, and we actually set up our camera, and we just said, we're gonna turn it on and answer one question every day. And we did that for a while. And that got us into like the reps of being like, okay, we're at least turning on the camera. It's a very simple format. We sit down, we answer one question, we turn it off, we edit out any of the like nonsense, and then put it up. And we did that for a while. And that I think helped us get some repetitions of being like, I can commit to this thing, just like answering one question. Not a ton of people were watching, but it got us into that flow of like, okay, we're making videos. I think that's important is like, what's the lowest lift format you can do on maybe a daily basis? Maybe it's shorts, just to get yourself like, how can I do this no matter what?
I also think it's about figuring out not how normal life gets in the way, but how normal life helps you come up with ideas. Because once you have an idea, it's much easier to make a video.
Agreed.
Right.
Agreed.
And I was even watching Marques Brownlee's autofocus channel.
Yeah.
He just posted a video where it's one take, him to his phone in a car talking about the problem with electric vehicle chargers, the system. And it's doing really well because it was an interesting idea and an interesting conversation.
Yep.
It doesn't matter that he was just talking to his phone and there's almost no cuts.
Right.
He was just aware of what was happening in his everyday normal life and then came up with a good idea. And then it was easy to execute.
Yeah. All right, this feels like really topical. This wasn't in our deck, but I'm just shifting. I'm going rogue.
How deep in the deep end are we?
I'm going rogue. This is from Buster Share. What's up, Buster? What do you think the average creator career length is on YouTube? A career equals making enough money annually for it to be your only job if you want it to be.
I don't know if we know the full answer to that.
Yeah, I don't know if we're there yet.
Because YouTube hasn't been around for that long.
Yeah.
There are only so many career creators that have the 15-year lifespan.
Yeah.
So I would imagine, the actual real average is very short, similar to being a professional athlete playing in the NBA.
Yeah,
or
4 to 6 years maybe. And that's like,
maybe
that might be long.
Considering how many people at one point are able to go full time.
Yeah. I think you have to look at it as seasons. Like you have to look at your career as a creative as similar to being an athlete, where sometimes you have an amazing season. It's your season. And the next season, you're maybe like kind of just getting by. And the next season, maybe you're injured. And like, it's just, you have to look at it on a long-term view when you're a creative, and you're going to have to just like do different things to make your game work. So yeah, I agree. I don't know if we know that answer, but I think if you can settle into being like, I'm a creative, and if one season it works really well and the next season it's a little challenging, you can make it a long period of time, but you're going to have to, now to circle back to the first question, keep your overhead low to do that. You can't have a ton of expenses. What will cut your career short is if you take on a ton of expenses connected to your creativity, but that the whole thing is very volatile. Like if you're not building truly like just media that's going to work over a long period of time, if you're really pinning it to when you're inspired to make what you feel like you want to make, then you have to keep your overhead at a reasonable level so that you can fluctuate.
I also think what will cut your career short is not having a willingness to reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to reinvent, then you'll stop.
That's true.
So.
All right, we're deep.
I think I'm almost drowning. I'm not sure I can,
Okay, if you're with us here in the deep end, comment 2 snorkel emojis. And also, I just froze. I don't even know what to say next.
Oh, that's deep. That's when you know, like
deep.
we are treading water.
Yeah, we're too deep.
Samir never freezes.
I never freeze.
Oh my gosh.
All right, we have another question from the subreddit. We're going to save it for next week. A little cliffhanger for the deep end.
It's a video question specifically for the deep end.
I do want to say thank you to everyone because we asked for video questions and we got a ton of video questions. I really appreciate that. So thank you to everyone for submitting video questions. If you have a question you want us to answer on Creator Support, you can submit it on YouTube. You can submit it on Twitter. You can submit it through the published press or Reddit. All right, we'll see you next week.